Hi, this is Pro Bono with Amber Cohoon. I am an attorney and I have a law firm in Fort Worth, Texas, Cohoon Legal. I service all clients in Texas and specifically in the North Texas area, but have clients all over. This is a new podcast that I've started and I am looking to bring you information about legal issues and topics in Texas for individuals and small business owners. First off, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney since 2017. I graduated from the Texas A&M School of Law, and I have been working at my solo firm since 2017. And it is located in North Texas area, but I service clients all over Texas. The practice areas that I focus on are business law, real estate, contracts, employment law, estate planning, and probate. So I will talk about a variety of topics, legal and maybe not so legal. Have a little fun, but informative. I really value the time that I get to talk to clients and educate them so that they can make good decisions. And so hopefully in this podcast, I will be able to do the same for you, whoever's listening. So check below to see how you can subscribe. At this point, I'm going to be doing these about monthly, but if you ever want to talk one-on-one about any legal issue you have, you can always go to our website at cahoonlegal.com. That's COHOONLEGAL.com. And you can directly sign up and schedule yourself for a consultation where you'll talk with me about whatever issue you have. So first up, this is January 2024, and specifically, we want to talk about there's quite a few new laws in Texas. So I am a Texas attorney, and while some of the stuff I talk about may be applicable to multiple states, usually it's very specific to Texas. So I just want to be clear about that. And this program has to be educational, and it is not legal advice. So this is educational, and you can obviously take some information from it, but for your specific legal issue, you always want to consult with an attorney directly if you have questions. So in January 1st, 2024, there were 31 bills passed by our 88th Texas legislature. And some of the big ones have to do with property taxes and HOA. And then for my business clients, franchise tax. That's the big one I want to talk about. So as a business owner, if you have an LLC or a corporation in Texas, it might be a little confusing because in Texas, we call it Texas franchise tax. That is actually the business tax that Texas has for business owners. But the great thing about business, it's very business friendly. If you make if you make under a certain amount of money, then you don't actually have to pay the tax. You just have to fill in the form and turn that in. Well, that was 2023 and past. That is changed now with the new law. They have actually doubled the exemption for businesses that make $2.47 million and below. You do not have to pay taxes. And you no longer actually have to turn in what was called the no tax due franchise tax return. And you on that form, you usually had to put your revenue and information. Well, that's no longer required anymore. There is a form that is required. There's two options. It's basically a public information report or an owner's information report. It's just general information about the owners and information about the business, but it doesn't require you to put how much revenue you have. So as long as you're under that 2.47 million, then that's all you have to do. Now, if you're over that, then you do actually have to do the report. But most small business owners and most of the business owners that, are, don't have like a law firm on their side or even like a big accounting firm, they're going to be under that threshold. And that's a huge amount of businesses. Actually, in 2024, they estimate that it will help over 70,000 businesses because of that exception. Now, there's other exceptions as well. So you really want to go to, this is at the Texas Comptroller's website. We will put that link so you can look. But there's 5 types of entities or people that can have exemptions. And that's ones that have a revenue at or below the 2.47 million, like I said. Also qualified new veteran-owned businesses, qualified passive entities, REITs, so that's real estate investment trusts that qualify. And then last are entities with 0 gross receipts. So you have no sales. Usually that's what that means. So that's awesome. Now, the due date, whether you have to pay taxes or you have to turn in these other forms, is always going to be May 15th or on or around there. Sometimes they adjust it if it's on the weekend, but always keep that date on your schedule so you don't miss it. If you do miss it, then unfortunately, because you don't turn in that report, you can actually be penalized, and what they've done in the past, and I don't know exactly what they'll do in the future, if it'll be the same, but you would not be able to transact business in Texas. Another new law that is a great law that will affect property owners is property owner associations. So Texas has adopted a law that actually requires HOAs or property POAs to adopt a formal and transparent policies about how they levy fines and other violations against owners. The associations will have to send each property owner a copy of their policies and post them on their website. Now, for those of you who don't know, Texas has a lot of HOAs, and usually when you buy a home, during the sales process, the title company will send you the HOA documents. A lot of people don't look at those. I highly recommend that you do, or pay attention to the area where they talk about fines or where they talk about architectural. Usually they're like ACC, like committee. And so because you have to get approval for changes and stuff like that. But a big thing about the fines is that an HOA in Texas, if it has it in its bylaws that it can do a non-judicial foreclosure, then if you have not paid your HOA dues and they send you letters and you disregard them and you don't pay it, that they can actually foreclose on the lien and sell it on the courthouse steps. That is not a good thing, unfortunately. And so you want to look through the documents to see if they have that non-judicial, meaning that it doesn't have to go through the courts to be able to foreclose. So most have a judicial where they do have to go to courts, but Texas law allows them to bypass that if it is in the bylaws. So there are definitely things that you need to pay attention to about bylaws. And what I will be doing this year is each month we're going to be showcasing a kind of area of law. And this month we're talking about small businesses. And we'll do a real estate one coming up. And so in that real estate one, I'll highlight stuff about HOAs. So you can look forward to that. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. We are on TikTok and we are on Instagram. I'm not very active in a lot of those. I think whatever we put on Facebook goes to Instagram or Twitter, one of the two. But I have a wonderful assistant, Nora, that helps me do a lot of that stuff. So I'm not really sure exactly where it all goes. But you can check us out in those places as well as, like we said, on our website. Something I would like to talk about with small businesses is that in Texas, we have a lot of flexibility for new businesses to start without a lot of government oversight and regulation. But there are specific areas of businesses that Texas does regulate. And so it's important when you're looking into your business to see if Texas does regulate it and you have to like follow some specific guidelines, is to visit Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. And so you might be in an industry that you already know, they already licensed. So as an attorney, I'm obviously licensed by the State Bar of Texas. So if you're a hairdresser, you have to get a professional license, different stuff like that. Some people know this, but some people don't, that there are actually quite a few areas that are licensed. I had a client years ago that was a mover. They weren't a typical mover of furniture, but they moved big aquariums. And they didn't know that they had to be licensed. So movers in Texas have to be licensed, and they're under regulation. And they're actually governed by the Texas Department of Transportation because they're moving stuff over the roads. So that website, we'll have a link to it. It's the Texas Department of Licensing and Registration. That's something to really look at. If you're looking to start a new business, obviously talking to an attorney that helps with small business owners, they can help you determine if you have to follow that. Another thing that people, when they are starting new jobs, new businesses, they will go to LegalZoom or any of those kind of, websites that create your business for you. And those have some okay information. The problem is that you can actually create it for $300 on the Secretary of State website yourself. So if you're going to go DIY, you could go even cheaper and DIY with the Texas Secretary of State. I do not recommend that. Obviously, I help people start their businesses, but if you don't know this, you might think it's a steal that, you only have to pay $99. Well, what they're giving you is not much more than just filing it for you, which you can just go to the Texas Secretary of State, fill out the document. It's really self-explanatory, and they have a lot of instructions on that, and you can do it yourself. So starting a new business in Texas, an LLC or corporation, is only like $300 plus you have to search the names. So I always round up to like $320, depending on how many names you're going to search. But so those are some of the things that you can do by yourself. But I always recommend anytime you start a new business that you talk to an attorney, a tax professional, and insurance professional. So I say a tax professional because when you start a new business, if you're going to incorporate, you are now going to be taxed at a different way because your business will have a tax designation that will maybe pass through onto your personal taxes. And so a lot of people that start a new business, they still have a full-time job. So you're making a full-time job salary, and you've been taxed whatever rate you're doing for many years. But then you start this new business, and let's say you have some good sales in that first year, 6 months, that it's going to affect you personally. So lastly, I said that you should talk to a insurance professional. I say that because depending on what type of business you have, let's say you're starting it at in your home, you might want to make sure that what you're doing is going to be covered by your homeowner's policy. And if not, if you have to add like an additional rider or something like that, because if you are doing some sort of business activity in your house and it causes damage, and the insurance company finds out that that's why, you were damaged because of the business, they could deny your claim. So you always want to talk with a insurance person, as well as there's certain type of businesses that if you're going to be offsite, you really need to have coverage. You need to have individual property coverage for the place that you're at if you're having customers come to your location. And something that people may not always understand is that if you have employees, that the so the insurance that you have that's like covering your property, those are for customers coming in. For your employees, that's actually under workers' comp. And that's a whole different area of law. But that's something to find out from your insurance carrier, because if you do have employees, they're not covered under your other property coverage, or like, I guess, overarching business one. That's mainly for third parties or people coming onto your property, not employees. So it's a distinction that people don't often know about. And so I always recommend that you talk to an attorney, tax professional, and insurance. Another thing I always recommend for my new business owners, or if you're thinking about starting a business, is to actually read or listen to on audio a book called Profit First: Transforming Your Business from a Cash Eating Monster to a Money Making Machine. And it is by Mike Michalowicz. I was fortunately recommended to read this early on before I really got started in my law firm. So I started from the very beginning. It has great principles about really kind of separating your money so that you know where it's at, as well as keeping expenses low. It's a great book. And I say this not just because I started a business, but because um, prior to becoming an attorney, I worked for over 12 years in the private sector working for small business owners. And one of the most common issues I saw is overspending. A lot of times I would come into a job, and when I first started, I was like an executive assistant for the owners. And then I transitioned into a project manager role at various companies. But I would look at what we were spending, and I would, depending on the company, sometimes I was working with the accountant, and it was unreal how much um, office supplies people would buy. And I know you have to have extra, you always have to have it, but it's almost like someone gets to spend someone else's money. Let's say if the owner isn't making those purchases, but you have an assistant or you have an admin person that's making those purchases. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's a big generalization, but I found that they would overspend quite a bit. And so that was just, I remember one company I worked for, I saved them over like $20,000 in like the first 6 months. It was a fairly large company because of the office expenses. They were just like auto, ordering, even though we didn't need it. Plus it takes up space. So um, that is something, just kind of a small thing. But when you're starting your business, you really have to look at your budget. You have to cut costs. You have to stay slim and trim so that you can have the extra money. So when you need to have, like upgrade a computer system or upgrade whatever, or a new software that you have to have, you have the extra cash in the company to be able to do that. Um, so I highly recommend this book. And as I was saying, so my experience with small business owners is that they might be really awesome at sales or making a widget or whatever it is that got them into this business. But running the business is a whole different set of skills. And sometimes they're not great at that. And one of the areas which a lot of business owners are not great at is keeping track of their money and not overspending. So this book really was very helpful, and I could have seen it help a lot of the people that I had worked for before that didn't have a great handle on their finances. So those are whenever I do a consultation for a new business owners or people who are trying to, think about a new business, those are the things that I talk about is getting a good attorney, a tax professional, insurance, and rating profit first. I want to talk about some stuff that will be coming up. So in the month of January, we are actually covering, and even though it's almost over, we're actually covering small business, startups or in-home businesses. And in February, we will be covering a lot of estate planning topics. I'm really excited. We will be having an estate planning webinar. And what's going to happen is we have open spots. It's a really inexpensive price of $25, and that can be individual or it can be a couple that are eligible for that registration fee of $25. That is $125 less than what it usually costs to do a consultation on estate planning. And we will be going over all of the necessary estate planning documents, as well as you could get started and be on your way to getting your estate planning done after that webinar. We're going to go over it. It's going to be an hour. It'll probably be about 45 minutes of going over everything and then about 15 minutes to answer questions. Again, it is not specific to one person. There'll be a lot of people in there, but it will give you all of the information that I usually go over for estate planning in my consultations, and you're getting it for $125 less than what you would normally pay. And that is actually going to be February 20th. It's a Tuesday, and it's 11 a.m. So if you are able to join us for that, great. If not, after it's over, we will have it on recording and we will have it available in the future for people. And we're going to be trying to add more webinars, but I that's kind of coming up. But right now we do have in the works. It is Tuesday, February 20th at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. It'll be a webinar, and you can sign up for that on our website. There's a drop-down menu, and one of them is webinars, and it's there, and you can sign up. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about maybe more of a fun topic, and that is about books and movies, maybe TV shows that feature lawyers or legal topics. And one of which I watched with my husband is Better Call Saul. And then we were rewatching it with my son. And one thing that I always said, because I don't do criminal law, and that's obviously what Jimmy does in Better Call Saul. And then actually, I think at the beginning he did estate planning for at the retirement home. But I always commented on how unrealistic, which of course my husband loved hearing about how unrealistic it was when he just wanted me to be quiet and watch the show. But that Jimmy never had a computer at his dad's and never like filed any paperwork. I mean, so I can imagine that criminal law is, I know it's different than business law, but there is still so much paperwork when you go into court, like all the stuff, like the motions and stuff like that, that requires paperwork. So it was always wild to me that he got so much stuff done. He had that one paralegal or assistant that kind of checked people in, but I mean, you never saw any paperwork. Now you had Kim Wexler that she was doing real estate law, which is more similar to kind of what I do because I do some real estate law. There was definitely paperwork, and she had to have a paralegal come in, and you saw the big files for her. So I just thought it was such a big, I guess, just not accurate. And so as an attorney, or just my personality, that stuff drives me nuts sometimes. So anyways, but it's a great show. It is a great show, but it's kind of dark, and it's definitely mature. So not everyone's going to love that show. But and I loved Kim's hair twist. So my daughter and I, it's one of our favorite things about her little blonde hair twist at the back. It was just so perfect. Um, Anyways, another thing that we are watching, which is this is an old show too, is How I Met Your Mother. And one of the characters, Marshall, he is at the beginning, he's in law school. And then he is, I think, getting an internship or whatever. And it's really funny because they say really a lot of ridiculous things. But when he wins an argument, he says lawyered. So it's really funny. It's another good show that is a little adult in nature. But we have teenage kids, so we can watch it with our older teenage kids. And lastly, this is a book that came out many years ago that I read, and it is called Defending Jacob. And it is a criminal, like more criminal um, book or crime book. It's not usually the genre that I read, but I was recommended it, or I was in a book group that was reading it. I can't quite remember because it's been a many years, but it is very good. It is by William Landay, Landay. The book is very good. It is suspenseful, and I would say that it is. I mean, it is a pretty good portrayal of probably a prosecutor, but there's some ethical issues. So whether or not that actually would occur, hopefully not. Um, but it is very good. It's thriller, and then it was actually made into a TV miniseries. And at the time, it was on like Apple TV, and I don't know if that's the only place you can get it now. But it starred Chris Evans as the main character. It was very good. I think it came out, yeah, it says 2020, the TV miniseries. So Defending Jacob, it's really good. Um, so that's what I have for a little more fun. Again, I really love to read books, and we watch a lot of TV and movies here. So I will try to add a little more fun to it because I know I love helping clients, but it's kind of dry and boring sometimes when you're just talking about the law. So I'd like to throw in a little fun in here. So I hope you enjoy that. I want to highlight some of the things that we use and that I use in my law firm and might be helpful to you. So, one of which is the Remarkable 2. It is a notebook, electronic notebook type of thing. Some people have, Apple products that do this, but this is a notebook and it's got a pen. I upgraded to the pen with the eraser. It takes my handwriting. You can convert it to text. You can put PDFs on here. It has an enormous amount of storage, and I use it all the time. So I read a lot of contracts. I have a lot of PDFs, and so I can just use the app that is on my computer or on my phone and drag and upload a document, and it will sync to the actual Remarkable pad. And then I can take it with me, and I don't have to take my computer. I take it with me all the time to write notes. It's in my handwriting because when I do consultations, I actually handwrite notes. And then I will send them and we keep them because that helps jog my memory. If I'm having to look back months later about maybe a legal issue we talked about, I wasn't sure that maybe we covered it. Going back and actually looking at my handwriting and my notes miraculously jogs my memory to the conversation. And so it's awesome. I love it. And I know they've upgraded since I purchased this because I've had it for a number of years now. They've upgraded it where I think you have to pay like a monthly subscription. I fortunately was grandfathered in, so I don't have to. But I probably don't even use all of the features on it. It updates all the time and it adds new features. It's just a phenomenal product. And again, I put contracts on here. I make handwritten notes on it. It saves paper for me. We don't like to print a lot in our office. Everything is pretty much digital. So this is perfect. And it has so much storage space. Right now, I'm only using 1.83 gigabytes of 6.41 gigabytes, which is not a lot because it's black and white. Although it does now have settings where you can highlight and color. It doesn't show up on this screen in color, but when you actually send the PDFs back to like your computer, it will show up in that color highlight. You can highlight, draw. It's just awesome. We'll put a link. It is pricey, but it's definitely if you're writing a lot, if you are looking at contracts or documents a lot and you just want to take it with you easy so you don't have to take your computer, then I highly recommend it. Okay, and in keeping with our talk about small businesses and in-home businesses is actually something that quite a few people are doing, especially with the emergent of all these food trucks, is what is like home business where you're baking or making food. I remember years ago, um, this lady would drive to our office building and they would have Mexican food meals made, and you would buy them out of her trunk. I don't know if they were governed or if they were complying with Texas cottage laws at the time, but they were good. I never got sick, but we had to pre-order, I think, and text them or whatever, but they were really good. But it is important that if this is something that you do, to follow Texas law. And one of the areas that they have made it a lot simpler is under the Texas Cottage Food Production Law. And this was passed back in 2013. So it's not a new law, but this is, if you have a home business and you're not aware of it, getting a food handler's license is important. And you still have to do that. But you don't have to face as big of a regulation. And they have a whole section. Now, this is not on the licensing website. This is actually on the Texas Department of State Health Services. So DSHS website, and we'll put that link there as well. But they do have licensing, like I said, so you have to get food handler's license. You have to go through the basic food safety education program for getting food handlers. I guess it's accreditation, maybe it's not a license. But you don't actually have to go through a food service establishment operation, more of like restaurants and stuff like that, where they have to be licensed and they have, regular checks and stuff like that. So there is this Texas cottage law that is more friendly. It does also talk about food labeling. Ingredients and stuff like that. Something to think about is some people don't realize that I've had, a handful of clients talk to me about starting a makeup line, and that is governed actually by federal law. And so stuff like that you maybe don't think it has rules because maybe you're just selling some bath scrubs or whatever it might be. It's important that we look and make sure that you're not violating any law. I have a client that is does like smudges and incense and stuff like that. And one of the things that we had to do is the title of her retail operation had to change because the name that she had it when she first started out would have violated laws that govern pharmacies. And we did not want her to be anywhere like in that realm. And so that was something that she didn't know. And it was a good thing that we looked into it, because she would have, all the money that she'd invested in the retail and the signage, everything like that would have been hugely affected. So again, it's important to do research, due diligence. And that's something that, as an attorney for small business owners, I really love to help you with. And I can do that with you and direct you to good resources, so that you can make good decisions and not sink money into an idea that isn't going to work out. Thank you for joining me with Pro Bono, a podcast hosted by Amber Cohoon. And this is for the public good. And I hope that you got some good out of listening to my podcast. And I hope you will subscribe so you can hear more coming up as we talk through legal issues that will affect Texans. Thanks so much, and have a great legal week.